Hi guys! My gosh, I missed you so much. I'm sending you so many virtual squishes right now. Welcome to True Crime Wine Wednesday. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn and I am so glad you found me. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for coming to hang out with me every Wednesday. You guys, you've changed Wednesday in my life. I don't have to keep repeating it, but I will always because I just love you and I appreciate you, and Wednesdays just aren't the same without you. I have so many mixed emotions right now, you guys. I'm feeling a little bit sad because this is the last Wine Wednesday I'm going to be filming in this room right here. I am so thankful for this home that we are leaving. So much has happened. We've grown so much in here. And this room specifically has already changed my life so much. It's such a weird feeling to try to explain because even though I'm talking to a camera, I literally feel like I am talking to every single one of you. I know like when I post that I'm going to be talking to you guys in the comments, and I don't know, it's really weird. It feels like I'm already doing that now. It's weird. This space right here it represents all of you guys, and I'm really sad to be leaving it, but I'm excited for the next adventure and to bring you guys along with me. So I'm just trying to, think of all the new memories, but I'm very, very thankful for this home. I'm going to miss it terribly, but I can't wait to see what we're gonna do next. I was debating taking Merlot with me. It's like a toss-up. It's like a 50-50 with Merlot. Either people love her and are so excited when she's in the video, or they're scared of her and she's too much of a distraction in the video. So, I guess we could do like a vote. I love her. She actually looks like a mashup of my actual cat, Khaleesi, and my favorite character in history, Marie Antoinette. So she's like best of both worlds, but you guys let me know. Okay, before we start, I want to thank today's sponsor today, Scentbird. This is so cool. I've been really pumped to share this with you. If you haven't heard of Scentbird, they are a fragrance subscription and they send you a new scent of your choosing every month. And how freaking cool are these? So you just twist, your scent comes out, but then you can pull it out as well. See how much you've got in there. The brand, okay, I can already smell this one and I'm dying. This is one of my favorites. Not only is this so convenient for traveling, you guys know I'm obviously on full travel mode right now, but you can pop these puppies in your purse, in your desk, in your car, in your pocket, wherever you need to go, and it's not gonna leak or anything like that. Aside from this freaking adorable packaging, I love that you can try things that you never have in a hefty bottle. For me, when I think of a perfume sample, I always just think of those little mini ones that you get and then you have to work and try to get the top off. It's all over your fingers. It's a huge disaster. But this actually, when you turn it up, you have the option to just spray it in the container, take it out if you want to. And this is an abundance of product. I don't know about you, but I like to switch up my scents sometimes. If I'm in summer mode or going on a vacay, I love that tropical smell, maybe coconutty hints and fruit. In spring, I like it to be a little bit more fresh, not overly floral, but just fresh. Winter, I think something more musky, and then fall, something spicy. But what happens for me personally is when I go to a store, I get so overwhelmed by the selection and trying to smell everything, and then it just gets all cross-scented. I usually just get over it and then I just go with my go-to perfume and I never leave with anything new to try. But these are great because for only $16 a month, you can try what you've been wanting to. They also have a selection of over 600 scents that you can browse through. And when you go to their site, they have a quiz on there so you can kind of get a feel for your vibe from it, and then they'll make suggestions to you based off of that. Then once you've decided which one you want, you can choose the bottle. So there's no surprises for you. It's not selected for you each month. Then if you like it, you can get a full-size bottle. If not, no big deal. Even if you want to pause for a month, you can do that too, which is nice. And the nice thing too is if you want to upgrade from one bottle to 2 or 3, you have the option to do that as well, which is what I have. This first one that I was showing you, this is the Versace Bright Crystal Absolu. Listen, you don't need to know how to pronounce this. All you need to know is this smells absolutely incredible. I could just sit here and sniff this all day. I wish I could share scents with you over, the internet. I'm also trying this one. Isn't that fun? This is a Good Habit Align, and this one here, this is the Rachel Zoe Instinct. Really nice. It's actually quite similar to the Versace, those same notes, but I'd say like it's a little bit softer. You can check them out, and with my code you can do your first month for only $11. And the nice thing is all of these are authentic. Scentbird works directly with each of these brands, so you're not getting like a knockoff or anything like that. You can try anything from designer like Gucci, Versace, Prada. The library is endless. There's so much to choose from. So if you want to check them out, make sure to use my discount code for 30% off. Also super exciting is Scentbird has expanded to Canada, so if you are Canadian like me, you can now order as well. That link is in the description for you. I'm so excited for you. I cannot wait to hear about you guys just sniffing yourself endlessly. Thank you again, Scentbird, for keeping us a little more nasally appealing. Okay, before today's riddle, I just want to say how freaking much I loved some of your guys' answers on the last one. The answer was that the dude was already dead, but so many of you guys like took like such a beautiful, like cute, positive spin on it, and I loved that. I saw a lot of like he was shot by Cupid, he fell in love. There was a lot of like Bon Jovi shot through the heart. And you know, like all of those are great answers. They completely made my day, so you're all winners, okay? You all win the riddle from last week. Okay, today's riddle is: a man was found dead with a cassette recorder in one hand and a gun in the other. When the police came in, they immediately pressed the play button on the cassette. He said, "I have nothing else to live for. I can't go on." And then there was a sound of a gunshot. After listening to the cassette tape, the police knew that it wasn't a suicide, but a homicide. How did they know? I can't wait to hear your guys' answers. I don't know if this is something you are cool with, but it's something that was in my thoughts the other day. If you have like a screen name that's not your name and you're comfortable with it, I'd love if at the end of your comment you just like signed off your real name, or you know, like a nickname, something you prefer to be called. One of my favorite screen names from a true crime community family member is Frosty the Hoe Man. It just kills me every time. And I definitely love when like you guys have like a, you know, like a fun screen name, but I'm also like, I wonder like who they are in real life, because if I ever get the opportunity to meet you, I want to know who I've been like talking to all of these years, you know? All right, I'm sorry. That intro was a lot. I've been working really hard on speeding it up so we can get directly to the case after sponsors, but I had to get all that out there. There's a lot going on right now, so I missed a week. You know, I'm trying to cram it all in. All right, stop, Sherrilyn. I don't know where I put my wine. I put it right behind me. Okay, let's get into it. This case had me straight up questioning the people that are closest to me in my life. Like when I say you really don't know somebody, this here is a prime example. Like you can just never be too comfortable. So grab your drinks, grab your snacks, grab your keyboards, your rags, whatever you're doing right now, and hold on. This glass is filthy. Today we are working right from the crime together and unraveling every twist and turn along the way. And it all starts at the home of Craig and Stephanie Rabanowitz at 526 Winding Way, where around midnight on Tuesday, April 29th, 1997, wife and mother of one-year-old daughter Stephanie was found by her husband Craig unconscious in her bathtub. When first responders get there, the scene is chaotic. They hear Craig screaming from upstairs in the bathroom, and when they get in there, they see that he's in the tub holding Stephanie's head above water, but she's unresponsive. EMTs take over and they start working right there on Stephanie, and Craig is just pleading with them to revive her, get a response from her. As all this chaos is going on, their one-year-old daughter in the room next door wakes up, so he goes to tend to her, and he said by the time like he's consoled her and come back, Stephanie was already being brought downstairs to the ambulance to head off to the hospital. Craig follows to the hospital. While he's there waiting, he's calling all of their friends and family members, letting them know that there's an accident that happened and that it doesn't look like Stephanie's gonna make it. Based on a lot of cases that I've seen where there's drowning involved in like bathtubs, I feel like suspicions start pretty early on, and that was the case in this situation. Back at their home, there were some first responders who were there to meet the detectives, and the first thing that they said was that she was unresponsive in the tub, but that they felt like there wasn't like a lot of water around the bathtub. They figured like if a husband was frantically trying to revive his wife, there might be like some chaos and splashing going on, and it was just quite dry. On top of that, Craig had told the first responders that he was trying to get Stephanie out of the bathtub, but that he just couldn't like muster the strength, which they found was a little bit odd because she was quite petite and he was like a bigger guy, so they figured it wouldn't be that difficult for him to just like, you know, pull that strength out of desperation. You know, you always hear of people saying that in those like dire moments, like a woman could lift a car up to save like their child or something. So they thought, you know, given that like people are a little bit lighter in water, having that assistance to then like just like pull them out, it wasn't really adding up. Again, I think everybody is different, but just I was trying to like relate it to a situation that I could understand. And when I was about 6 months pregnant, I actually passed out in our bathroom and I was unconscious, and Brent found me in there and he was able to like pull that dead weight to our bedroom. But again, like I don't know, everybody's strength is different. There most definitely can be situations where even like I think panic can set in and you're just like kind of numb. So while they're writing, I was doing really well today, wasn't I? While they're writing their reports back at the Rabanowitz home, Craig is at the hospital waiting on news of Stephanie's condition, and unfortunately the doctors come in to tell him that despite all of their efforts, they were unsuccessful at reviving Stephanie and she had passed. At first glance on their end, they had a bunch of scenarios going on in their head. There could have been a plethora of natural occurrences that made this happen, because just looking at her with the naked eye, there was no visible injuries. So while there was a little bit of suspicion going on at home, at the hospital, they were just seeing this as quite a tragic accident. After they pronounced Stephanie dead, Craig and all of their family and friends were able to go and say their final goodbyes. If you've ever done this, this is heart-wrenching. But for Craig, he said he just couldn't go in. And more importantly, he didn't want to go in and face her parents, he said. Everybody deals with grief differently, so nobody saw that as a red flag. So everybody says their goodbye, and since the family was Jewish, they wanted to have her buried before the next sundown. So initially an autopsy is denied. However, when the medical examiner saw Stephanie, he just had this gut feeling that he needed to look a little further. And so he just pulled rank and overruled that request and performed an autopsy on her just to be sure. In his mind, he figured at the very least he could provide some health insight by maybe like an underlying condition that nobody knew about that he could share with the family and pass on for like her mother or her daughter to know in the future. When he starts the exam, it's been about 10 hours since she's passed, which is a benefit because often signs of any foul play become more prominent as time goes on and the blood starts to pool. So right away when he starts the exam, he starts noticing like these small little broken blood vessels around the forehead area. And to him, these are signs of air supply being cut off. And then around the neck, he found like slight bruising, indicating that there was possible strangulation. As he's moving further down her body, he also notices that there's quite heavy bruising on her elbows and her knees as well. That could have been a sign of a struggle, either like in the bathtub or getting to the bathtub. He's not sure. Once he's done his exam and makes notes of all these bruises, he orders a toxicology test, and when those results come back, it shows high amounts of Ambien in her system. There was also remains of her dinner left in her stomach, which the examiner thought was quite odd just based on what he was getting from the timeline of events that evening. That evening, Craig and Stephanie had gone out with her mother and father for dinner, and they were home around 9:30. Craig called around midnight, which would have been fine except for the amount of food that was still left undigested in her stomach. Indicated that she died pretty soon after coming home from dinner, probably within like an hour and a half, so like 10:30, which is definitely not midnight and leaves about 2 hours unaccounted for. So we know the drill. He is called in for questioning the next day, and he agrees to come in, and he comes with his friend who happens to be a lawyer. He's very cooperative. He was asked to go through the full timeline of events for that day. He said during the day, Stephanie did some shopping with her mother. This is something they often often did on weekends. Almost every single weekend they were together. They had a very close bond. They hung out for a little bit after shopping, and then the entire family went to dinner at a Thai restaurant. After dinner, they went back to Craig and Stephanie's to hang out for a couple minutes together. Craig said he was feeling a little restless because he thought that he had taken too much caffeine that day, so he decided to take their daughter for a walk around the block, and by the time he came back, Stephanie's parents had already left. He said he tucked their daughter into bed, went to the kitchen, grabbed him and Stephanie a beer to wind down for the evening. He said it must have been around 11 that they were having their beer together, and then Stephanie went to the bedroom to pick out her clothes for the next day and decided to go and have a bath while Craig watched the hockey game in their bedroom. He said nothing was odd. Stephanie didn't seem out of sorts or anything like that. He said the only thing that stood out to him from this bath was that he did hear a thump not too long after she had gone to the bathroom, and he thought it was probably just like a shampoo bottle falling, so he didn't think too much of it. And then he said about 20 minutes had passed and he thought like, okay, well, I haven't heard like any movement in there, she's not out yet, so he just felt like he should probably go and check on her, and that's when he found her unconscious. He said his first reaction was just like panic. He jumped in the water. He desperately tried to get her out, but for some reason, he just couldn't pull her out fully. The detectives asked him if he performed CPR, and he just said no, and just straight up said, I really wasn't much help to her at all. He said at that point, he made the decision to leave Stephanie, run to his office to call 911, unlock the doors for the first responders, and then that's when he ran up to the bathroom to just hold her head above water before the emergency response team came to the house. They asked him if she was taking any medication that might make her a little bit drowsy, and he said no, but that he had recently had a prescription written for him for Ambien because he was having a really hard time sleeping lately. Not surprising, the detectives asked Craig how their relationship was, and Craig said it was ideal. They were like the couple that everybody wanted to be. They were best friends. They didn't have any problems. She was just like the apple of his eye. Stephanie, who her family and friends called Steffi, sounded like a remarkable woman. She was a go-getter. When she decided she was going to do something, she did it. She was very intelligent, had great grades, a strong group of friends. She was the type of person who was once given an extra $100 on a return from Bloomingdale's, and her friends and family were like, oh my God, like, perfect, just keep it, go buy something extra with it. It's Bloomingdale's. They have more than enough money. It's not a big deal. And she was like, no, it's not right. Like, regardless of whether they have the money or not, it's not my money. Like, it's theirs. And so she went and she returned it. Obviously, just like a sweet and amazing person. And Craig picked up on that very fast when he got to know Stephanie in 1983. She was a camp counselor for a camp Wohelo. I think I got that one. And she loved it. She loved being a mentor, figure for younger girls, almost like an older sister to everybody. Craig was also working at a camp as a counselor nearby at Camp Comet Trails. I guess they briefly met the summer prior when Stephanie's little brother went there, but they didn't get to talking or anything like that. But when they crossed paths the following year, they both remembered each other. Craig was 4 years older, so for Stephanie, that was quite impressive. He was the older dude. Plus, he was an undergrad at Temple University, so he seemed like he definitely had, his eyes in the right direction. For their first date, he asked her out to a movie and then a Philadelphia Flyers game. It's like his favorite team. They're from Philly. Go Birds. That was for my husband. Huge Eagles fan. After their date, Craig was anxious to, lock down that second one. But I guess before her second date with him, she was considering canceling, and she had gone to her mom and she was like, I don't really know if I want to go. And her mom was like, you know what? That's fair. Keep your options open, but for tonight, just honor the commitment you made and go for the date. And something happened during that date that for whatever reason, Stephanie was pretty much sold. She saw something in Craig that she wanted to pursue long term. And I guess her mom was like, okay, like I was saying, just for that one date, keep your options open. This is your first love. No need to lock anything down right away. But Steph wasn't the type to play the field. It wasn't something that interested her at all. So they dated for 7 years and then they got married married when she was 23 years old. Her family didn't see them very well suited for each other. Steph was a high achiever. Craig had dropped out of school and he didn't seem to want to set goals for himself and excel in life the way that Stephanie did. He was the type who wanted to live a very flashy lifestyle but didn't want to do anything to get there. Whereas Steph had the drive to get everything that she could ever want in life but didn't really need materialistic things. So it was like they were working on different wavelengths. She was very focused on having a successful career. Initially, she wanted to be a doctor, but she soon found out that she had a needle phobia, so obviously that wasn't going to work. So then she went to her next passion, which was studying law. And no surprise, in 1992, not only did she graduate law school, but she did it with honors. Yeah, it's a fun one. Yes. Look who it is. It's Clout Baby. Clout Baby. He's drooling everywhere. We're gonna take a feeding break. Do you just want to say hi again? Is that what you always do? Just readjust myself. So I guess the easiest way to say it is between the two of them, Stephanie definitely had the drive and then made it happen, whereas Craig was, I guess, described as a planner. He had all of these plans, all of these ideas, but when it came to executing it, he didn't really have a plan. While he was figuring out how he was gonna make all of this money, he was just bouncing from job to job, and they were kind of random. He worked at a spa as a manager for one job and then was working as a real estate appraiser, so kind of all over the spectrum. And I think this kind of uncertainty and where the direction of his life was going was one of the reasons why her parents weren't too excited about them being together, but it was something that they always kept to themselves because Stephanie's mother said she was the first to admit that when she looked at her daughter look at Craig, she could see how in love she was with him and how happy she was, and even if it wasn't what she would have chosen for her daughter, it wasn't her place to say anything to her. And things did finally look like they were coming together for Craig. In 1990, he and another friend of his named Craig started their own company selling latex gloves to medical offices, practices, hospitals, and they called it CNC vending. I guess in a nutshell, the business plan was to order these shipping containers full of latex gloves and then sell them. And he said the return was going to be really big, something like 34% profit. And of course, since he was a dreamer, he wanted to hit the ground running. He wanted to get 4 containers off the hop, which worked out to be about $88,000, but he didn't have the money to fund it. So he put together a business plan and presented that to some friends and Stephanie's family to get these extra containers. They essentially were his only hope at getting things going off the ground. I guess him and Stephanie had already remortgaged their house 2 times. So Stephanie decided to put their home up as collateral after seeing Craig's business plan, seeing his enthusiasm and the numbers that he presented. This was the first thing he really put forward a lot of effort and actually had a plan for his plan. I'm not sure if Stephanie's parents would have helped them out with this if they had known that they had unknowingly already helped Stephanie and Craig out of a bind before. I guess a few years earlier, Craig and Stephanie moved in with her parents because they owed over $6,000 on their rent at an apartment they were renting. And it got to the point where the landlord was suing them, but they never shared that with Stephanie's parents. They just said that they were at the point in their life where they wanted to save more money so that they could buy their dream house, and they thought the best way they could do that would be to move in with them, so they agreed. Reading about the situation and where they were in life, it kind of sounds like they were just right on the cusp of just taking off. Things were falling into place for them. Stephanie was doing really well at her law practice, and Craig's business was starting to flourish and show this return that he had promised everybody it would. They jumped the gun and bought a house in a really nice area. One of those upper scale family friendly communities. It definitely sounded like one of those idyllic neighborhoods where all of your neighbors were your best friends. You'd block off the roads to have block parties. You just left your garage door open so people could come and go. And they were that couple that everybody liked to hang out with. Craig in particular was a block favorite. He was known as the gossip of the neighborhood amongst all the ladies. And then when the guys would get together, he knew all the football stats and he was the jock guy. Things were going great. In May 1996, they added their first child to their family, a daughter named Haley. Steph was so happy to be a mom. As much as she loved being a mom, she wanted to enjoy it. She didn't want to be held down to being a stay-at-home mom, and that was her role because it wasn't her passion. She wanted to be a mom and enjoy it and enjoy all those tender moments and also provide for her family and work really hard. Like, law was also a main focus of hers. So quite quick after Haley was born, Steph decided that she wanted to work part-time still and then be at home with Haley the other part-time. I'm sure there was an element of it that she was, admittedly the breadwinner of the family. So the more time she took off, the more they needed to budget, but she was just happy to do it. So her and Craig worked out a schedule of her working at the office on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. It was starting to get to the point that even on Stephanie's days of work, she wasn't feeling like there was too much pressure on her to do it to make money for the family. Craig's business was starting to take off, so she kind of got back to more of that, like, I'm working to enjoy work, not because I have to be here and all of the pressures on my shoulder for like our mortgage and bills. Craig was at a point where he said his business was getting even better because he made this really tight connection in New York, and he said this guy was going to be the one to get him to that next level by introducing him to like top companies that were going to make bulk orders. After Craig shares all of this, his life, his relationship, Stephanie's life with the detectives process it all, sit back, and then they just get to like the famous question, and he's like, cool story, bro. What's your life insurance policies look like? Craig was transparent. He said that there were several policies that were taken on Steph. He said there was one for $1.5 million on her and one for $1.2 million on him, another for $500,000 on her and $150,000 on him, and then that there was one through like her benefit plan at work. They're like, okay, perfect, thank you for that. Wrap up the interview, have Craig sign a statement, and as they're letting Craig go, they're like, oh, one more thing. We've got a little bit of a problem here, Craig, because Stephanie was strangled. I guess Craig's lawyer was like, oh my God, Stephanie strangled herself? And the detective's like, no, she did not strangle herself. He looks at Craig and he's like, was it you? Craig says no, and he said, well, if she was strangled, then that means that somebody else came into the house. I didn't hear them, and that's the person who killed her. At this point, his lawyer interjects right away, and he says the interview's done. Next, they get a search warrant, and they go through the house. Going in, I guess the main objective was that they wanted to find this Ambien bottle. They wanted to see what was inside. They knew Craig had this as a recent prescription, and he admitted that he had already taken one of the doses, so they're expecting to find it basically full. Unfortunately, they don't find it. They don't find any remnants of pills anywhere, and they don't really find any signs of foul play. They were kind of like, are we looking at this all wrong? Are we trying to grasp at straws here? Maybe there's an innocent explanation for what the medical examiner found. And just based off the conversations that they had with family and friends, it didn't make sense. His friends in the neighborhood specifically were really struggling with the rumors that were starting to swirl that he was being even questioned or looked at. They're all like, like, we know him best. We would know if there was any sign of like a fracture in this relationship. Like, they were the perfect couple. He was the husband every wife wanted and every husband wanted to be like. Everyone they speak to vouches for Craig, and so it's decided that Stephanie's service is going to go forward. It's kind of poetic because on the day of Stephanie's funeral, the detectives get an anonymous phone call. The caller said to look into a gentleman's club called Delilah's Den. This was referred to as one of the more elite clubs in Philadelphia. It's a place this person on the phone said Craig spent a lot of his time. Not only did he spend almost every single day there, this caller said, but he also was allegedly having an affair with one of the dancers there. The caller wouldn't give his name, but he said that he was a boyfriend of one of the dancers, and he felt just compelled to share the information that he knew. He also said it was no secret what was going on at Delilah's Den, and that basically everybody knew that there was something going on between Craig and this specific dancer whose name was Summer. They go to the club and they speak with the manager, and the manager knows exactly who Craig is. They say, yeah, he has been here quite a bit. He started coming almost every other day, multiple times a week, for about a year since last June. She said since January of that year, he was going pretty much 4 times minimum a week. He had the same routine when he would get there. He would go straight up to the champagne room. This is where he would have his lunch, and the manager said that each time he would spend about $500 to $1,000 each lunch. Almost every time, too, she said that he would get a bottle of champagne, which cost about $280. So that was like on top of what he was already spending on food and like dances and stuff. And this was happening 4 times a week. Naturally, their first question is like, how does Stephanie not know this was happening this often and like this amount of money going out of their accounts? And they learn that the way Delilah's den is structured is meant to be discreet. Basically, the way the club is set up as a whole, you've got your dancers on stage. They would mingle, provide lap dances for extra money. And then there was the option to have private time conversation dances in the champagne room for extra. To get into this area though, it was quite exclusive. You needed a special card. You have to be approved because you're a regular and have spent a lot of time in the club. You're a good customer. You don't cause a fuss. You don't, get handsy or anything like that. And everything that you pay for in the champagne room is bought with Delilah bucks, which you purchase on your credit card and then like use in there. And when you run it through your credit card, it comes under as D&D restaurant. So if Steph were to have ever looked at the statements, it would show that he was spending time at a particular restaurant. And it sounds like Craig had even already played into that a bit and like lined himself up. He did tell Steph that he would go to the club, but it was to appease this new connection that he met in New York. I don't know why, but I instantly thought of like he was probably also the guy who's like, I only read Playboy for the articles.
Sure, Jan.
Next, the question on everybody's mind is, who's Summer? And they learn her name is actually Shannon Reinhardt. She had been working at the club for about 5 years. I guess she started as a hostess and server and then moved her way up to dancing. And I guess she was one of the top dancers. All of the other dancers said like she just had this energy about her. She went in there like with no questions, like to make a lot of money. Didn't mind stepping on toes. She was highly requested by the customer, just very well known. After they're done at the club, they head straight to Summer's house, and it sounds like she was already prepared for them. She basically answered the door and was like, "Hi, come on in. Before we get started, I have a friend who's a lawyer who will be joining us, and they'll be here in a few minutes, so like just hold tight." So they're waiting around, having small chit chat, talking about the weather. And then one of the detectives is like, "Oh, like I love the decor in here. Like your furniture is so nice." And she's like, "Oh, thanks. It's actually Craig who bought that as a gift." When her lawyer gets there, he actually knows one of the detectives. So he's like, we'll share. We'll get her to talk. She's going to cooperate. Summer agrees to talk. She says that the last time she saw Craig was on the Friday. She says she pulled into work and Craig was waiting for her in the parking lot and he looked distraught. She said she got out of his car. She said she got out of her car and he's like, "I have to talk to you." And she was running behind for her shift. So she was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's talk and walk." Hurried up a little bit. And he said, "My wife is dead." She said she felt so awful. She just started crying for some reason. She felt like close with Craig since he was a good customer. She knew about his wife. She asked how their daughter was doing. And she was just like in this like daze for the rest of the evening. She explained it as almost because she knew Craig and Craig was married to her that she knew Steffi even though she didn't. When it came to answering questions about their relationship, all Summer really had to say was that she did know Craig very well, but as a customer. She said he came in a lot. Usually it was at lunchtime, and all he would really do there was just have lunch and like enjoy her company and just pay her to sit and have lunch with him. She said the last time that she had seen Craig before the parking lot was the day before Steph had died. During that lunch, he had given her $600. She said she never had a sexual relationship with him. She strictly just saw him as a very good customer, and there was only one occasion that they ever saw each other out of the club, and that was when he went with her to pay for the furniture that the detective was admiring earlier. She said over the time that they knew each other, he had given her other gifts like earrings and bracelets, flowers on occasion, and admitted that he was a good customer, but made it very, very clear that he was not her highest paying customer and definitely not her best customer. He was just, a good one. He's all right. When detectives asked what she knew about Craig and Stephanie's relationship, she said she didn't know much. The only time they ever spoke about it was when Craig said that he did love his wife, but he felt like he wasn't in love with her anymore. He actually told Summer that she would be somebody that he would see as like the perfect wife, but that just wasn't the way she saw him. And when detectives asked her if he said anything about being involved or if she thought that he was involved, she said no. After they leave, it doesn't take long for news outlets to get a hold of this story, and they go insane, obviously, having this scandal under their belt with this like mysterious death. They're going nuts with the story. In the court of public opinion, Craig is obviously the one who did it, but detectives know they can't just arrest him because he's a douche nugget of a husband and spent thousands and thousands of dollars at a gentleman's club on a dancer there. So they go back to Craig and Stephanie's house, and this time their main goal is finding something that shows financial statements. They want to know how he's funding his spending. They had already taken some things from the office in their initial investigation, but nothing was really standing out to them. They go back. On the surface, they're getting a little bit anxious because nothing else is looking suspicious to them. They feel like they keep going back to square one, and right before they leave, they go to Stephanie's closet. In her closet, in the ceiling, it's like one of those ceilings where you can like push it up and like hide stuff.
You can put your weed in there.
Sure enough, there's a bag in there, and it's got things like adult magazines. There's also a receipt for some jewelry that was taken to a pawn shop, and then some miscellaneous papers with like notes written on all of them. When they looked into the pawn shop receipts, they see that jewelry was taken the day after Stephanie was dead, and when they follow that up, they realize that is actually jewelry from her grandmother that she had inherited that Craig brought in and sold the very next day. Again, being a douche nugget doesn't lead to an arrest. So they went back to these notes that like had all this random writing and numbers on them. And they're like, given how grimy the whole like pawn shop receipt thing was, why would this be hidden in here? Like on the surface, it doesn't look like anything, but there's a reason why this is hidden. So they hire a forensic accountant to go through it, which is really cool. I never even knew there was such thing as a forensic accountant. I guess if you were like an accountant and good with numbers, which I am not, but if you were, this would be really cool like way to like incorporate like forensics and numbers. Just some food for thought for anybody who likes numbers out there. As he's analyzing the papers, there's one that stands out to him, and it's got two columns. One that looks like amounts being totaled for money coming in, and those look like investors who are like putting money into the latex glove company. And then there's a column of money going out that looks like the investment being returned plus the profit that he promised these people. The numbers on the sheet were big. It looked like he owed a lot of money for somebody who said that this company was such a profit. After calculating all of the money that he owed to investors, creditors, bills, he was just under $500,000 owed, which seems to be all fine and good because on the out column, it looks like he's got things under control, except the out amount that is being used to pay back these investors and creditors is being accounted for by one large lump sum of money, like well over $1 million. And the investigator is like, where is this one lump sum that he's using to like divvy out coming from? He does some digging in their lives, and he finds out that that sum is the total of Stephanie's life insurance policies. As the amounts and these abbreviated names he had for people and companies were being solved, it became hair-raising because you realize that this guy actually tallied up all of these insurance policy amounts on his wife, and they found out that this was done weeks before Stephanie died. So he was like banking on this money before she was even dead to pay all of these people back. For example, he had initials for amounts from FC, which turned out to be First Colony Insurance. That policy was for $1 million. He had another one under PM, which was Provident Mutual. That added up to about $500,000. There was another under ABA, which was the American Bar Association that she would have under her name for being a lawyer, and then a $10,000 policy from the firm that she worked at. Next thing to look into was, why did it get to this point to begin with? You know, like Craig talked to everybody about how profitable this business was going to be. Was it, you know, doing well, but he had spent all of his money at Delilah's Den on Summer? Or, you know, like where was like the disconnect? What was going on here? As they're trying to find the amounts of the companies, they realize there are none. There's no invoices, no proof of business, no receipts, no client information, nothing. He never had a latex glove company. So he was basically taking money from family and friends, using it to go and fund this lifestyle at Delilah's Den for himself. Then when he ran out of money and it was getting time that he had to, you know, pay back these initial investors, he would find more family and friends to invest, pay those people back, have some more fun with some leftover, and so on and so forth. So essentially he was running a Ponzi scheme to fund his addiction with Summer and Delilah's Den and just being a douche nozzle. Just for reference, of 5 people that he had borrowed money from, he owed just under $400,000 to them. And that was just in the interest. When detectives spoke to the insurance agent, they found out that Craig took out the $1 million policy on Stephanie a month before she died, and even called a week before her death to just confirm that the policy was in effect. As if that's not like blood boiling enough, this guy even goes as far as doing his little tally chart where he factors in the sale of Stephanie's car, the jewelry that he pawned, paying off his investors, and still being left with about $1.2 million, which he had circled in like a big, nice, obvious circle, which was like basically like, this is what I get at the end of the day. Thank goodness all of this was discovered so fast. He was arrested on May 5th, and before trial, his lawyer wanted to cut a deal. So the prosecutors were like, yeah, sure, but the only deal that we want to make with you is life in prison. They assumed he'd turn it down because it's like, what does he have to lose? It's not like it was like a death penalty case, so essentially that would have been the max anyways. So they were just like, we're basically gonna save a trial here. So they turn it down. Everything goes in motion to get started. Jury selected. It's been about 6 months almost to the day since Stephanie had passed. Trial started on October 30th, 1997. Because of how much this story was shared on the news, the courtroom was packed. It also was full of Stephanie's close friends and family. As they're waiting for everything to start, Craig comes in with his lawyer, and his lawyer walks straight to the prosecution and says he's going to plead guilty. It pretty much came down to the fact that Craig knew that everything that was discovered about him was going to come to light. I think it was like one thing that if it was written about him in the paper, there was almost not a sense of accountability and acknowledgement that he was a piece of crap, but then he'd have to sit there in court and hear all of it and sit there in that shame, and he didn't want to do it. He pleads guilty and he's sentenced to life in prison, and he was given an opportunity to address the court and Stephanie's family. He said that he wanted to take accountability for everything that he had done and that he couldn't keep up with the act that he was living anymore. He said he knew he hurt a lot of people. He knew he hurt Steph's family. He knew he hurt Steffi's family, and that they were going to miss her and that he was also going to miss her. It's a little too late for that, Craig. He said the deciding factor for him to come forward was that Stephanie had come to him in a dream about like the night or the night before. He said it was very vivid, where she was sitting at their dining room table and she was accompanied by her stepfather, who had recently passed away, as well as Craig's, who had passed away. And he said it was so real and felt like she was there that she grabbed his hands and he could feel her fingers. And she said, it's time to do the right thing. And so when he woke up that morning, that's when he called his lawyer and decided he was going to plead guilty. He said that he didn't have a solid reason for doing what he did. Ultimately, it just came down to the fact that he was a fraud and a sham, and it got so out of control that he couldn't keep up with the lies anymore and didn't know how to get out of it. He's never said exactly what happened. The Ambien bottle was never recovered, so we don't know if he used any of that to try to subdue Stephanie. The theory is that when he prepared their beers and brought them up to the bedroom, that he had crushed up a bunch of Ambien in it to make her fall asleep, and then it would make it easier for him to put her in the bathtub and strangle her and make it look like she had drowned accidentally. There is a theory based on the bruises on her knees and elbows that at one point she could have woken up and was fighting and then had bruised them against the bathtub, or that there was some form of struggle prior to getting to the bathtub and that he just moved her body there to stage it where she fought back and got those bruises, but we don't know. He was sentenced to life without parole, and Haley was raised by her mother's parents as well as her mother's very close friends so that they could all have an active role in just showing her how loved she was and try to make things as easy as they could on her. Summer went on to star in a local theater production called Porno Stars at Home. She has done one interview where she acknowledges that Craig was a client of hers. She said that she misses him as a client and friend and looked at him almost like a perfect partner and father that was just in an imperfect marriage. Wouldn't say I agreed on that. But I mean, I don't know the guy. And I don't know what I think in general. I do think that he had other women on the side, not just Summer, even though he was obviously like really obsessed with her, just given the time he spent at the club and on her. But I don't think that he was like actively in a relationship with her. Probably not because he didn't want to. He probably did. And it was more of like her not wanting to and having that like professional relationship just stay where it was. I mean, it was working for her. He was giving her money anyway. She says they never, got it on or had a relationship, and she was open with everything else. So I do tend to trust that. And there were things that just kind of indicated that there was probably somebody else in his life besides Stephanie and Summer, because in that file folder that was up in Stephanie's ceiling, detectives did find some receipts. One of them was purchased on Valentine's Day from Tiffany's, and it was a necklace that was never given to Stephanie or Summer. So it's believed that it was given to somebody else, which leads to a whole series of questions on its own, like who is this person? Why have they never come forward? Did they know what was going to happen to Stephanie? Where is she now? Another trail that they found was that up until 20 days before Stephanie passed away, he was charging hotel rooms to his credit card at least once a month. One of the stays months before her death was for $1,900 in the presidential suite, where there was like record of him checking in that morning with an additional guest and then checking out that afternoon. So many questions still. Let me know your thoughts, you guys. I can't wait to hear from you. Let me know how many times you side-eyed your partner while you were watching this, being like, I think we have the perfect relationship. When are you going to do this to me? Is that just me? All right, that's it today, you guys. I will try my absolute hardest to see you guys next week. There is a chance that just with all the settling in and the new studio setup that it won't happen, but you know how much it just drives me crazy to miss an upload. So every effort will be exhausted so that I can see you guys. But if it's looking like I'm not going to, I will definitely keep you guys posted. Make sure you go over to my Instagram if you kind of want to see all of that behind the scenes stuff. I can't wait to read your riddle answers. Just for a reminder, the riddle was: a man was found dead with a cassette recorder in one hand and a gun in the other. When the police came in, they immediately pressed the play button on the cassette. He said, "I have nothing else to live for. I can't go on." Then the sound of a gunshot. After listening to the cassette tape, the police knew that it was a suicide and not a homicide. How did they know? And the answer is someone would have had to rewound the tape because when the investigators found the cassette tape, they just pressed play immediately and the message was there. All right, that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You know it means the world to me. I love and I appreciate you so much. I will see you in the next video, and I will miss you terribly until then. Make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.